Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Sifu Messiah. This is a weekly show which covers everything from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links can be found in the description for anything we discussed during the show, so let's get on with it. So, this week we have 10 for the designers. Ben is alone in around the verse, and we get a great in-depth Q&A post in regards to the Starfarer. So, to kick it off this week, we have 10 questions for the designers. I think I've picked the majority of them. The first question is, if I'm a hauler and my friend is escorting me to a new mission site, if I then get a mission to haul goods from A to B, will my friend get a specific mission to escort me since we're in the same group, or will he just get a random mission to escort a different player or NPC? And the answer is, they have not fully worked it out yet, but they definitely want to keep people together, and they will make sure that there's a mechanic to allow this to group you all together. So if one of you takes a cargo mission and your friend wants to escort you, there'll be a way that it'll be grouped together so you can all work as the same team. So, next question. In regards to hull damage, will players not strapped in be sucked out into the vacuum? Now, this was brought up a while ago, a long while ago if I remember rightly. It was about a year or two ago. And they said that yes, and it was also highlighted in the Connie multi-crew demo, which if I can remember to put it up, I will do. You will get sucked out if you have a hull breach or anywhere on the ship, a breach in the hull, you will be sucked out, and things that aren't strapped down as well will be sucked out, so maybe some cargo if it's not on the magnetic plates. But they did say that magnetic boots or mag boots will be available, so you can walk around freely even though everything else is being sucked out into the black. Anyway, question after that is, with the hull B having the TR8s, which are physically smaller than the Connie's TR5s, are ships TR limited or size limited? And can I put TR8s from a salvage onto my Constellation? And they say that the TR rating is not size rated. It's all just the amount of thrust. The thrust from a TR8 would shear off the engines from a Constellation, which is why it's limited to a TR5. So the next question is, what is the fuel efficiency difference between large versus small ships? And they say they are right now working on the analytics to cargo hauling costs. So it's currently being developed, and they say that ship masses are really increasing, so they're making sure that it's not so efficient, so only big ships can make the money. But they don't want to punish people who are using a fleet of small ships, for example. So they're working on the balancing now, and it sounds like they're really not quite sure just yet. So after that, their question was, will there be equally strong size 1 and size 3 weapons, or will a bigger gun perform a bigger output? And the answer is yes, but there will be a range of weapon potency, and long-term tuning will allow you, yourself, to fiddle with a size 1 and really see what it can do. So this comes into sort of the engineer mechanic where you can overclock your systems and possibly weapons by the sounds of it, so you can make it do a lot more damage. It may use a lot more energy, but you know, if you've overclocked your power supply in a way, you may be able to get more energy to that weapon. There's going to be a lot of dynamics to this whole process. And this physically based damage system will bring a complete overhaul to all the weapons that we currently have now. Now, obviously everything is subject to change. They keep telling us. If you've still got your heart set on a favourite, I would try and push down on that because they are going to change. So, next question, which is regarding Arena Commander, is the only way to reload missiles or bullets and get repaired is to eject. Will we ever be able to escape a fight with quantum travel or go to a far off point without having to respawn? So they did mention that there are upcoming changes to Arena Commander. Refitting and repairing of ships will be a core part of the game in AC, as it's just a test bed. So at some point it will happen in Arena Commander, but just not yet. But when it does happen, it will be like a little nugget of what the PU version will be like. So again, as we say, the Arena Commander is a test bed. It gives you a chance to try out new systems, and it also gives them a chance to see how well they perform and where it needs to be tweaked. So next question, in space, will ships have the same optimal speed but with different accelerations, or simply different speed? Now this is something that has been discussed a hell of a lot, especially on one of the latest Star Citizen videos that we've done, where it was mentioned sort of briefly that ships may have all the same top speed, and it was something I at first thought, oh, that's not good. But looking at it now and hearing some of the responses as to why and how realistic it would be not to have a top speed, it kind of makes sense. Now they say themselves that they've been working on this for a couple of weeks and looking specifically at that. So they say that acceleration does play a big part in what speed you can reach, and for instance, that if you have a Hornet, your top speed is not just going to be 200 meters a second, it'll be variable. So this is pretty much saying exactly what people are saying themselves, that in space there is no top speed, it's just a matter of how fast you can get. You know, if you were constantly thrusting, your speed will just keep increasing until you hit something. So the fact is, it doesn't sound like there is going to be an actual top speed. Maybe for Murray Cup they will limit this to a certain degree with their ships. I don't know, it sounds like it's a big brain ache for the designers, and they are coming to a reasonable conclusion, so as soon as they know, I'm sure that we will know, and when it's finalised, we will get to test it. So after that is, how will cargo be handled when having a cargo box isn't too feasible, or even possible with small ships like the Aurora or the Hornet? They say that cargo will be in cargo holds, like for instance the Aurora has the sort of big box that can be attached underneath another clip. It works with a clipper, you've seen it on the brochures. It slides underneath, and then in order to access this, you will have to land, or I expect if you are stopped in space, you'll have to EVA out and get into the cargo hold that way. They also say you'll not have as good a cargo manifest like you would on the bigger sort of haulers. It would be a very basic, you're probably hauling this or that, it's not going to be as in-depth as these huge cargo haulers. So the last question is, will it be possible to design the Redeemer's lower modular section as a fully capable theatre, sort of, I think they called it a C3 I-Star suite, to include decoys, jamming, and intel collection? And the answer is probably not as sort of a theatre-wide modular room, and they can't even say whether that is going to be a modular room itself, but you can fit any ship for things like electronic warfare, etc., and you can even tune avionics to defend against electronic warfare, but it won't be locked to a ship. It will be more of a style of gameplay, so not one ship will be able to, do it better. You will be able to get the suites for all ships, but saying that the Herald is pretty much designed for that idea, info running, and we shall see. Anyway, that was 10 for the designers. Tell me your thoughts. What do you like? What do you dislike? Okay, so up next is Around the Verse, and this is episode 44. Now, it was just Ben Lesnick this week, as Sandy, as mentioned last week, is in London shooting Squadron 42. She cannot say who she's playing though, which is unfortunate, but she's all part of the performance capture. Ben also mentioned that they have reached $82 million in crowdfunding. This is insane. It's going to make one hell of a game, as we are already seeing. Anyway, on to news from Around the Verse, starting with Santa Monica CIG. They are currently supporting IllFonic, and they're taking the vehicle radar system and allowing things like audio blips for items around you to bring it to your attention. You say it sounds very much like the Alien's ping, so that may be quite scary. I know the Alien ping when I was playing it on the Mega Drive used to freak me out completely, but yeah, they're re-evaluating the vehicle radar system. They're also working on the new wingman commands, as we've heard, one of them being taunt, which is to pull enemies off of you. So if you've got someone targeting you, you can get your wingman to taunt him and try and draw him away from you, and also attack my target, so you can redirect your wingman to attack the same target as you are. So over to IllFonic. They are talking gadgets and strategy for the first-person shooter module, and they say things, if you've got a hologram and a shield. Now, they did mention, actually, that heavies, people wearing the heavy armor can select 2 items, or gadgets, should I say, and if you're wearing medium or light, you can only have the 1. But what they say they do is they drop the little personal shield in front, and then throw a hologram behind it, and the enemy will keep shooting at it and focus fire on this, because obviously they don't understand why you would protect a hologram, but it draws the enemy fire and you can trap them. Very, very clever. Also, they say if everyone on your team takes a force propulsion grenade, draw the enemy into the large warehouse area, shut off the gravity, throw the grenades, and they say it's just bodies everywhere. It'll be very exciting to see all these different tactics and methods of play that each team will come up with. I'm very excited for that. I cannot wait for our org to get in there and start seeing how badly we perform. Anyway, over to Austin CIG. They are working on the social module, and they say they have got the emote system in testing phase now, so you can dance, you can clap, you can cheer. Again, just making the universe feel a lot more alive. Also, we spoke to a visual effects guy called Lee, who is working on the Nix, and he says he's working on the tunnel system. There's going to be water dripping down from the sides. It's an asteroid with a base in it. There's smoke, there's fog. It does sound very, very cool, and if you ask me, the sneak peek may be one of these tunnel systems, but I could be wrong. Anyway, moving to Foundry 42, we had 2 guys from the LA office who are over there helping them just fix up the character pipeline, and it's mainly the FPS characters. They say they are converting it to PBR. They're building new tech while they're there as well, which we will not see in the FPS release, but will be, noticed later on. And the FPS characters look good at the moment, they say, but the bar will be completely raised in the future. So what we see for the FPS module will probably look fantastic, but it will be just much better later on, which I am so excited for. Anyway, from there, we met up with Sandy and Chris Roberts, who are behind the scenes in London doing the performance capture shoot. They say this is the 4th week of the PCAP shoot, and Chris Roberts also mentions they are capturing lots of behind the scenes footage for Squadron 42, which we'll be able to see probably once we've started playing Squadron 42, so there's no spoilers there. And he says that he's taking the sense of being on a ship and interacting with people to a level that has never been done before. You'll have time to sit and interact with the crew of the ships. And then if something happens to the crew or the people you have interacted with, you will actually feel something for them. Like you will miss them, or you'll not want them to die, or, you know, he didn't go into specifics, but it sounds like it's going to be very, very involving. Now, he did mention there was 450 pages of script currently written, and they will be writing around 550 in total. So it sounds like the script is actually coming up to finishing off, which means that the Squadron 42 will be out, hopefully as scheduled, at the end of this year. Anyway, from there, we met with Lisa Ohanian, who is doing the new Ship Shape post, and she was speaking to Mark Toscano, who is the senior lighting artist, just talking about the different lighting that they put on the ships and why. Very interesting. If you are interested in this sort of thing, it's definitely worth checking out. Even if you're not, it's worth watching. So this week, James Pugh was interviewing a chap called Kirk Tomei, who is the senior technical designer, and he is currently working on the Ghost system, which is the game Object State, something beginning with T, and this allows more choice to parts of the ship. For example, instead of just clicking on the cockpit and the ladder coming down, you climbing into the seat, you can now specifically drop the ladder and then choose, say if there's a co-pilot or a pilot seat, you can then choose which seat you want to sit in. He said it'll really, really help on the big capital ships, allowing more interactions and allowing you to pick and choose what you actually want to do rather than just doing the one animation that is currently available. Now, Kirk is also taking the Connie from hangar to flight ready. So he is the chap responsible for that. He was responsible for the Gladiator, getting it from the hangar to Arena Commander. So hopefully we'll be seeing some of the Constellation in flight, ready for the multi-crew system. So we had an extra interview this week with Pete McKay, who was interviewing John Pritchard, who is the physics programmer, and he was talking about flight mechanics and the algorithms involved. Now, if you are interested in this, I'll try and find the link, as this is just a small snippet of what was said. There is a full conversation that they had together. I will find the link and I'll put it in the description. If I haven't, you'll see an annotation right now. Anyway, also this week, James Pugh is running a charity live stream on Twitch. It is a 24-hour live stream, so I'll try and find the link to that. But again, you'll watch him on Twitch and just join in on the fun. So the art sneak peek to finish off. In my opinion, it looks like an underground tunnel system. Could be Nick's. It's definitely got that feel, but I could be wrong. Tell me your thoughts on that. So, over the course of last week, there was a Q&A post in regards to the MISC Starfarer. This post is very similar to the Hull Q&A, which I am yet to cover, as that was during the week I was away. But each time there was a new post that happened on the Monday, the Wednesday, and the Friday, they had a little in-fiction story blurb from someone who uses the Starfarer. So I'll read out that, as it gives us a little insight as to how the Starfarer may work. So it starts with, they like to say that the hardest manoeuvre to pull off is in-flight refueling, and depending on the ship, sure, it can be tough. My brother flies an M50 and yeah, it's pretty tough to line it up with the nozzle, but there's no danger. The real deadliest manoeuvre in the Starfarer is refueling up in the first place. You ever dive into the ionosphere of a gas giant, you lose all visibility, your sensors flicker off, and if you aren't lucky, you'll suffer a cracked windshield or worse from ice particles. So that's the rule on the treat. Refueling operations are in full spacesuit only, every single time. So that was pretty cool. I mean, it gives an idea of what it'll be like. It's quite a dangerous gameplay mechanic having to dive onto these gas giants just to collect all this fuel up. Again, you're going to have to suit up and just be ready for what happens. Anyway, the 2945 MISC Starfarer is the refueling platform of choice for the United Earth Empire and 9 out of 10 major corporations. Rated #1 transport by ship and pilot, the Starfarer is a masterpiece of dedicated transport design. Featuring a modular nose mount capable of loading any of a dozen variant utility packages, the Starfarer can be adapted for any mission from fuel gathering to ranged radar support. Onboard refinery equipment and built-in reinforced hydrogen piping installed throughout the hull mean that the Starfarer isn't another converted transport. With the MISC Starfarer, you'll never run on empty again. So, with that said, this is the first lot of questions in regards to the Starfarer. The first one being, can we get confirmation on whether the cargo specs are related to the internal cargo bay and whether the Starfarer Gemini's cargo size is reduced due to the increased mass of armour? And it says the number provided are the aggregate of their internal and external cargo capacities. Most of the cargo reduction on the Star G be is due to the internal changes, where it will mount reinforced bulkheads and larger military-related equipment. So the question after that is, will the Starfarer cargo area be able to hold pods for a snub fighter, and can a rover fit inside the internal storage area? So they say that at this time, they do not expect the rover to fit inside the internal bay, although a Grey Cat should. They say vehicle sizing is still in flux, and in the final game, the limitations will be purely physical. So it's not that they're not going to allow it, it's just that it physically won't fit, which is a very cool aspect. Again, not something we really see in games. So question after that is, the third question is, does the base Starfarer have any other advantages over the Gemini, over the better maneuverability and cargo space? So as they say that there'll also be differences to the internals and the finished look of the two, but other than that, it doesn't really sound much difference. So next question, will in-flight refueling be done while moving or stationary, or both? And the answer is both, which is brilliant. In-flight will be the most difficult, obviously, but I'm sure we'll get used to it, and it sounds like it'll be quite dangerous. Anyway, can both variants land on a planet? Can they both land fully loaded? Answer is yes. Quite a straightforward one there. Next question, will the Gemini be available to be obtained in the persistent universe? Yes, anything sold through the website can be obtained in the PU. It is purely to help development. So the next question is, will the veteran Starfarer owners get the VFG asteroid hangar? And yes, you will. So if you already bought one on the previous sale, you will get that hangar once it is released. So next question, will the Starfarer be upgradable to use as a long-range scanner, jump engine, etc., and use it as an exploration ship with a lot of cargo space? They say yes, you can. There are other dedicated, or more dedicated explorer ships, but the Starfarer is still fully capable with the necessary upgrades. So question after that is, how viable is the Starfarer as a solo player ship? The maximum crew has grown quite a bit. Is there a reason? And they say it's perfectly viable. The extra seats have been added for Squadron 42, which explains why they've added about 5 more seats. The max crew with every ship refers to the number of people who can have a role at any one time during its flight. It's not the number of people needed to fly a ship in the first place. I mean, you can actually fly every ship on your own and either, you know, have NPC crews manning it, but it just makes it a bit more efficient and it runs a lot more smoothly. So yeah, you know, you can have as many people or as little people as you want on your ship. So the next question is, will the Gemini be branded as MISC or Aegis? And they say that in the lore, MISC builds the basic chassis of all Starfarers. If it's been adapted for the military, then it's shipped off to Aegis for completion. Now they say this is based on real life aircraft, so the same thing happens there, but the formal badge on the Gemini will read Aegis. So question after that is, can the Starfarer underslung fuel tanks be swapped for holding straight cargo containers? And yes, we did see an image of this. The standardized store-all containers can be used instead, but obviously the hull series would be better suited to transporting that. Anyway, can you tell us about the fuel mechanic? How important is fuel in-game? Will I need to refuel regularly on long flights? How important is the size of my fuel tank? And is it useful to have a Starfarer on long exploration convoys? A very good question, one that is obviously on all our minds. The answer being, the fuel mechanic is still being developed and will be something that will shift often based on actual game balancing. They say the general plan for fuel is to be important, but not something you are worried about every turn. They say think of Wing Commander or Privateer, where you could run out of afterburner or jump fuel and be forced to travel home very, very slowly. And obviously jump fuel being the more dangerous to run out of, as it could leave you stuck in a system without a fueling station. So, I mean, hell, remember the 7 Ps? Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. If you don't get enough fuel on board and you run out in an area or a system that has no refueling stations, you're buggered. You're going to have to wait for a Starfarer to come along, basically. So they say, expect fuel to be a serious support role in Star Citizen. There will be players and NPCs in Starfarers serving the masses, so if you do get stranded, hopefully you'll be able to just put out a little distress signal. They say the importance of fuel will go up depending on the mission. For example, a military campaign against the Vandal might be significantly benefited by supporting Starfarers, as the ships in the battle will expend resources quite quickly, so they'll need to refuel quick. Transport moving in safe space will probably never need to refuel, as they will generally be quite close to a planet or a refueling station, so it swings and roundabouts with that one. Anyway, next question is, will there be a big rig racing? So can we see a Starfarer as an actual racing ship? And they say eventually, like most things, eventually we'll see one. Right now, it's likely your Starfarer would get stuck in the gates. A racing Starfarer has actually already appeared in Star Citizen fiction, but right out the gate for the first iteration of the PU, definitely not. It'll be down there sometime later. Next question, can the Star G transport one Hornet with a docking clamp, or is it possible to buy one in the PU? and it says that the Starfarer is not intended to transport fighters. Current prototypes suggest that a midget fighter attachment for the hull series would not fit on the Starfarer, so possibly not. Anyway, next question and last question for the first part of this is, can the Starfarer be retrofitted into a heavy gunship like the AC-130? And it says they're not in a position to test it out yet, but quite possibly. They say the Starfarer has a number of hardpoints and other modular areas. They already have developed a potential missile pod that can attach to the nodes instead of refueling equipment, so it's looking like you can get a pretty decent AC-130-esque Starfarer variant, but they're not really ready to test it and see if it would work. Anyway, that was the first part. Now we'll go on to the next part. So there's another little blurb about someone in the Star Citizen fiction, and I am quoting this from General Dennis Cutler, who is the Space Refueling Command. He says, "Welcome new pilots and crewmen. Many of you likely dream about flying fighters and taking the battle to the enemy, stenciling your first Vandal silhouette to the side of your ship. I'm here to remind you that you have an even more important role, keeping our boys and girls in the fight. Because of the fuel and support you provide, men who would otherwise perish in the cold of space will live to fight another day. No one here will judge your dedication to the Empire because of the ship you fly. You are an essential part of the process. I remind and encourage all pilots, crew and boom operators to familiarize themselves with the Electrostatic Hazards Guide. Around here, killer aliens are the least of your worries." So again, another little insight there as to what we can expect in the persistent universe. The Starfarer plays a big role in Squadron 42, and I wouldn't be surprised if you start as maybe a crew member or a boom operator for the Starfarer, somewhere around there. You know, I don't know if you're going to be able to jump straight into a Hornet and blast the skies. Who knows? But it does. I would love to have a little role on a Starfarer, just refueling all these friendly ships. Anyway, starting with the questions for part 2. This was a post from Wednesday. How does CIG intend the Starfarer to perform in flight? With 3 TR4 main thrusters and 14 TR3 maneuvering thrusters, does this mean it will turn quite well but accelerate very, very slowly? Is that the intention? And to answer it, they say to quote an earlier Chris Roberts game, the Starfarer will maneuver like a pregnant yacht. The standard model will maneuver more cleanly than the Gemini, but it will still be significantly slower than anything like the Hornet or even a Constellation. Oftentimes, the number of thrusters is defined by the ship's shape, not because you can bring all of them to bear at once. So next question, do either of the Starfarer models come pre-fitted with a refinery? Also, does the Gemini come with the means to collect fuel, or does it come as stock with a missile system? So they say that both variants come with limited fuel processing tools. The Gemini comes with both the external nozzle and the missile pack, and in fiction the Geminis typically mount the nozzle rather than the missiles. So next question is, will the Starfarer Gemini suffer a reduced modularity because of bigger engines, weapons, shields and less cargo space? And they say that this will limit some of the internal customization, as there will not be as much room as the standard model. The room system is still in the works, so the degree to which this is applicable is unknown at this time. Quite fair. So next question is, will there be any other Starfarer variants? And they say there aren't any in the works at the moment. Never say never, but they typically only add variants later if they have a compelling idea that, they think will improve the game. But don't plan for a Super Starfarer at any time soon. So, moving on. Will both versions be able to have the same upgrades, or will there be some limitations due to how each is designed? Very similar to the last question. It says the only limitations will be those introduced by equipment sizing. The Gemini can mount larger guns, have larger shields and engines, which cannot be transferred back to the standard model. Everywhere else, parts should be interchangeable. So the question after that is, will EVA be required to operate the boom? They say no, the refueling equipment can be operated internally, and they say they are playing with a mechanic in which it is faster and more efficient to be operated from an external point. So this little platform we see going to the boom, it sounds like, yes, you can put on a spacesuit, an EVA suit, head out and manually, maybe using some controls or actually taking hold of the boom itself, guide it in, but it won't be necessary. It says it may be more efficient or faster, but it's not necessary. You should be able to do it all from inside. Anyway, next question is, which component or components are responsible for the loss of cargo capacity, and can it be removed as well? This is referring to the Star G. Now they say the primary reduction in cargo capacity is because of the internal armoured bulkheads, which cannot be removed. The larger power plant also plays a role, and it can be reduced in size. So there may be a little bit to swap with, but again, going back to the same question before, it is that those armoured bulkheads that really take up the most room. So next question, how many ships can one full Starfarer refuel? Is it maybe 6 Hornets, 2 Connies, or something maybe even larger like an Idris? Very good question, and to be honest, it will play a big part into how many you keep in a fleet. So they say they don't have an exact number yet, as it may change for game balancing, but the general thought is it can refuel about a squadron of fighters, about a dozen it says, or a couple of larger ships. So quite significant. That will keep a few of them going for quite, I mean, I don't know how long one fuel tank will last on a fighter, but I'm sure it'll get you quite a long distance. Anyway, how will the Starfarer Gemini be more of an Aegis ship besides the ship interface? So the answer is you will ultimately see some Aegis styling in the larger Gemini unique components, such as the main engine and the internals, which are finished completely by Aegis. So, question after that, will the Gemini be available for purchase in the PU, or will it be attainable through capture? So they say that the Gemini will be available in the persistent universe. While it's flown by the military, it isn't a particularly classified piece of technology, so Geminis are sold not only to the UE government, but also to other powers and organisations. So you should be able to get your hands on one if you didn't manage to get there for the sale. Well, even though I think it's still on, isn't it? Anyway, question after that is, will official fuel stations buy fuel from you while in your Starfarer? And they say yes. Next question, can we refuel alien ships like the Banu Merchantman or the Jan Scout with the Starfarer, or will there be multiple fuel types? They say that at the moment, they're envisioning only one type of fuel. If that changes, the Starfarer would be able to support multiple types. So next question is, can the Starfarers carry cargo and fuel at the same time, i.e. left side for fuel, right side for cargo? And yes, they can. This would be accessed by the cargo management system they recently detailed during the Hull series release. So question of that is, can the tanks explode? Can they be used as tactical weapons mid-flight? That's a good question. And they say that under certain circumstances, the tanks can certainly explode. They intend to work out the actual physics, so it won't be a direct exploding barrel situation that we see in many games. It does say as hydrogen doesn't explode in a vacuum in the way that you might be imagining. And as for tactical weapons, they say that's up to you. There's a potential Starfarer variant, which is an armoured mine layer, so there is ideas up there for the Starfarers, but it depends on whether we'll see them or not. Anyway, next question is, can you go into any detail regarding the difference in the variants' internals? Basically, he says, I want my Gemini to have that fish tank very badly. So he says, we can't offer too much in additional details, but rest assured your fish tank will have a home in both the Gemini and standard Starfarers, unless you swap out the captain's quarters for another room. So it goes to show the images we saw of the Starfarer, and I'll put them up again, of this little fish tank area. That is the captain's quarters. Maybe, or it doesn't sound like the normal crew quarters will have a fish tank, but I'm not putting my hand down on anything yet. Anyway, will the source of natural fuel that Starfarers collect fuel from, for example, gas giants, be relatively close to safe space? Also, will the amount of Starfarers collecting at these sources affect the output and production? Will these resources ever run out for a particular location? And they say that there will be gas giants throughout the galaxy. They say that roughly 75% of the star systems they have built to date include at least one, so there's going to be a hell of a lot. They say the number of Starfarers shouldn't really deplete them because the gas giants are very, very big. So yeah, I very much doubt we'll see a gas giant deplete. And if it does, it'll be like a game master event. So next question, the cargo capacity of the Starfarer changed from the Hull B Q&A from 4,043.52 standard cargo units to the Starfarer design update, which is now at 3,321 standard cargo units. What changed over the week? Is it a difference in container efficiency of using cube-shaped boxes versus round barrels in the exterior hold? They said that this change occurred when they received the new, more detailed model to measure. It says you will likely see some fluctuations with cargo on many of the ships as they come online, although they should all stay in a similar range. It sounds like the concept idea was a certain set piece, but when they got the ship sort of physically rendered and ready to carry, it reduced it by quite a good sort of 600-700 standard cargo units. But they do say it won't go too drastically, but it will likely change. Anyway, next question is, other than fuel, what other liquids or gaseous cargo will the Starfarer be the primary choice to carry? And they say that they haven't finished the cargo registry yet, but the options are endless. Things like water will be a big deal, and it says imagine being called to help with a drought after a solar flare. As with all sorts of typical commodities like crude oil, space milk, liquid nitrogen, liquid oxygen, nitrogen, and they said melted cheese, but they did mention afterwards that that's probably not going to happen, which is quite a shame. I can just imagine having melted cheese in a big warm container. Anyway, where will the refueling ports be on other ships? It's quite a significant Second question, it says this will differ depending on the ship, though they will typically be forward of any given canopy to allow for ease of docking. So that makes sense. If you're trying to refuel, you will, just like a Air Force One, you'll fly up behind the Starfarer, it will allow its penis to drop out, and then you will grip hold. Slightly weird. Anyway, will the Starfarer be able to refuel itself? And it says a Starfarer can refuel itself by processing the fuel from its tanks. That is to say, no need for a second Starfarer. So yes, you can keep collecting fuel and keep refining them, and there you go, you're off. And the final question for this part is, how many stars could a Starfarer fare if a Starfarer could fare stars? Any ideas? 42. You were probably wrong. Anyway, that was it for the part 2. The third section, or third part, is coming along right now. So, for another blurb, this time it is from the brochure of the Aegis Dynamics Weapons of War from 2943. I think that's the same year that my Aurora LX was made. Or was it 44? Anyway, it says, the G2G Gemini is the galaxy's premier armoured refueler, with the capacity to support a squadron of Hornets on a multi-system combat assignment. The Gemini is how the tip of the spear stays sharp. Based on the award-winning MISC Starfarer chassis, the Gemini has been rebuilt from the ground up to military specifications. Optional weapons packages ranging from missile launchers to mine layers allow this turtle to pack a real punch. The Gemini is available for broad use today and is highly recommended for anyone operating on the frontiers or beyond. Very, very cool. I do love these little in-fiction blurbs. They kind of create the atmosphere for us. Anyway, now on to the new questions. This was posted on Friday. With the Starfarer's designed modular rooms, will those be unique to the Starfarer hull, or are modular rooms being designed with cross chassis in mind to allow more variety with less work by the designers and artists? And they say that this will depend largely on the room. Some ships, especially the larger ones like the Idris or the Javelin, will have room, and these rooms could apply to multiple ships, whereas smaller ships like the Starfarer will likely end up with primarily unique rooms, although models and props can be reused between them for ease of art and development. So while the physical room may be shaped differently, the same desk or aquarium might appear on multiple ships. Next question is, can all the fuel and refining equipment be removed from either variant in favour for an all-cargo carrying version? And they say no. You'll always have the internal fuel support systems taking up some of the space. Think of it this way, they say that on the hull series, the cargo is fully separate from the ship, and the job of the ship is only picking up and dropping it off. On the Starfarer, the ship has to interface directly with the fuel pods in flight, so there's all sorts of internal plumbing to support this, which is fair enough. I mean, it is a refueler. Next question is, in the PU, will it be more difficult to obtain a Star G due to reputation requirements with the UEE military faction? And they say yes, the Gemini will likely be produced in significantly lower numbers, so don't expect to get your hands on one instantly. It's going to take some time to be built, I expect. Next question is, does it come with a jump engine? And yes, it does. I expect they will both come with a jump engine. You need to be able to get through systems to help people. So the next question is, can they take the Starfarer and collect and refine the fuel and then leave the fuel in maybe a personal depot somewhere to help refuel your ships in your hangar or your fleet? And they say that they don't have personal depots ready yet, but you can store the pods in your hangar. Otherwise, the answer is yes, you will be able to use the Starfarer to manage your fleet. So you could collect all this fuel and refine it and then pop it in your hangar and keep it there just personally for your own personal fleet, which is really cool. So the next question is, clearly the external cargo space for the Starfarer can handle multiple types of cargo, but what about the internal cargo space? Can that only be used for fuel? They say for internal fuel, the answer is anything that fits, and it is not just limited to fuel, so you can put all sorts in your internal bays. So next question, does the Gemini variant show that gas will become a strategic resource in future, limited by possible trade embargoes, for instance? And it does say that while it's possible in some situations that fuel will become such a resource that is needed, it says that the existence of the Gemini doesn't indicate this. The Gemini was created because the military needs a supply chain. Anyway, can we expect soon an in-depth article about fuels, liquids in general, and the whole economy of the verse? And they say that yes, the fuel system and related balancing are still in development, but when they have a solid prototype in place, they'll present it to us to see. They say the economy will be fleshed out in many articles as they approach the launch of the persistent universe. Really can't wait to see how it's all going to work. Anyway, question after that is, does the Gemini carry less actual fuel as cargo than the regular Starfarer can? And the answer is yes. Next question, quite straightforward. It says, I'm interested in the possibility of skimming fuel from gas giants. Any idea where they are going with this? Seems like the perfect chance for a procedural generation since you don't need to have a ground. And they say that this is one of the Starfarer's primary goals. You can see in one of the concept pieces that they put together for this that the filter is in the nose of the ship, so you need to fly down into the outer atmosphere to collect the fuel. They didn't really go into much more detail after that. Well, that's all they said. But again, it's going to be quite an interesting but probably dangerous pastime trying to collect this fuel, like what we heard in one of the blurbs. So next question is, when flying the Starfarer, will NPCs ever hail us looking for an in-flight fill-up? It says, this seems like it could be a good way to make a little extra money on the side, as fuel would probably cost more in a normal station. But also, the request could it be a pirate trap? And they say, absolutely, any role we imagine in Star Citizen will be used for NPC mission generation, so yes. Next question is, say, what are the advantages of refined versus unrefined fuel? And they say that refined fuel can be used, unrefined cannot. Quite straightforward. It says the Starfarer's equipment will refine fuel much slower than a dedicated refinery, but quickly enough for personal use. So you'll be able to choose between trucking vast quantities of fuel to a refinery or refining a more limited amount immediately for your own use. So question after that is, what have the developers envisaged as far as mishaps during in-flight refueling? What would be the result of a collision with the refueling boom? And what happens to the Starfarer or refueling craft if, say, one of those craft explodes mid-refueling? And they just say the situations are all bad news. They say they want the refueling to be a challenging process, so failures and collisions should cause significant damage to your ship. So you are going to have to depend a lot on your friends. If you are a refueling crew, you'll need to know what you're doing, because if someone's coming up to get refueled and one of you makes a mistake, it could probably kill one of your members. And I tell you what, if I'm dead, I'm going to come back and cause havoc to my friend if they do that to me. Anyway, the final question is, there seems to be a belief that an explorer would be able to hire a Starfarer for support on long trips, allowing the player to take advantage of a near unlimited supply of fuel. And they say that seems like a good plan. Having a tanker with refinery capabilities along with you will significantly expand your range. So there will be other limitations that will likely prevent you from going forever, chief among them onboard munitions and system damages. So there was a lot of questions answered there, very good questions. Whether or not they're on your mind or not, it was always good to hear. Quite a long post, so hopefully I can shorten that down with a bit of editing. But tell me your thoughts on it. Are you excited for the Starfarer? Is it a role you want to play as a trucker or a refueler? Let me know your thoughts. Put them in the comments. So also this week we met the dev who is Pete Mackey, who is a designer and a resident DJ. There was a new discovered post called Journals of Harper Goyen. It looks like a silent N to me, does that? They're very cool, definitely worth a read. The Star Citizen Alpha 1.1.3 is live. Now this isn't anything too significant, it is mainly network improvements to help with things like rubber banding. They've also fixed the REC exploiting when you eject to bypass the loss of life, plus other fixes. Again, nothing exciting, but all necessary to getting the game complete. You can test drive this week the whole Aurora and Mustang range as part of the starter ship test drive. If you are interested in those ships, or if you want to buy one, or just see how they fly, get into Arena Commander and give them a go. I have the LX and it is wonderful. I also have the Mustang Beta, which again, very wonderful ships. And for subscribers out there, the new Jump Point is available, which has the whole work in progress amongst a lot more other things. So yet again, we have come to the end of the show. I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers and a massive thank you to all our patrons. You are truly helping our channel grow. If you are interested or able to help us out in way of a monthly donation from as little as $1 to any amount you deem fit, check out our Patreon page in the description. This really helps our channel to create more videos, better quality videos, and it allows us to get better hardware, better software, plus it allows us to spend more time on creating the videos. Don't forget to subscribe, comment if you have anything to say, show me the love by hitting the like button, and share it with all your friends and enemies. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in next week's show.